Welcome to the Boom Bap Kingdom. Yo, peace, and welcome to the Boom Bap Kingdom. You know, there's a lot going on in terms of samplers, groove boxes, even software and features. And for me, you know, being a boom bap enthusiast, a boom bap producer, beat maker, whatever you guys want to call it, we come from the school of less is more, right? And do more with less. Those little proverbs, if you will. So with that being said, I kind of started thinking, and I said, okay, with these new machines, you know, whatever they are in terms of like the top tier units, you know, your push 3s, your MPC XSEs, Force Machine Plus, you know, anything that falls into that realm that really kind of has all the bells and whistles, all the features, you know, a gang of plugins, instruments, this, that, and the third. When is too much, right? And when is not enough, just enough? That's a little conundrum, right? Maybe it's a little brain teaser that we're giving you here at the Boom Bap Kingdom, because when you listen to some of the most iconic beats in terms of boom bap, things were very, very minimal. Very minimal. And I'm talking like post Bomb Squad era, you know, because those guys threw 1,000 samples in a beat. How they did that, who the hell knows? That was 1988, you know, those guys, they were going nuts. But when you start to look at the Juice Crew era, you know, Marley Marl, and those that came after, right, your Pete Rocks and Large Professors and Premiers and your Diamond D's, Buck Wilds, and then a little later after them, your Havocs, you know, etc., etc. Things really calmed down. The beats had groove. They had the illest drums, the illest samples and chops, and you know, and it didn't take much. If you really do the knowledge, if you listen to some of those really iconic beats, you won't hear more than 7, 8 samples for the entire track. I'm really just talking about that golden era East Coast boom bap hip hop, right? That official, you know, boom bap stuff. Your Diamond D's and your Buck Wilds, you know, etc., etc. But when you listen to those beats, you know, your Havocs and such, you might hear maybe 8 samples. And that's including the drums. So think about that, right? And then the machines themselves had massive limitations, but the limitation is what fostered creativity. So that's also kind of a conundrum. So where I'm going with it is, can too many features actually stifle creativity? And is it important to your workflow to sometimes take a step backward into the past and break out of a machine that has immense limitation, but within that limited bubble come up with something really, really dope? That is something that I do, right? And I'm in the process of kind of separating how I work meaning what I work on. The Force for me is like my Swiss Army knife. I can do anything on that, from very minimal boom bap to very complex compositions. You know, I can do that on the Force. The Plus is very similar. Octatrack, man, OT2, you can get busy on OT2. The thing's a beast, you know. But again, the three machines I just named are loaded with features and whatnot. It can be easy and it could be difficult at the same time, because sometimes you can have so many features that you don't even know where to start, or you don't know where to finish, where to end, because you might keep throwing stuff in there. And that's when we get to the realm where too many features can be too much, could be overwhelming. So where am I going with that? There's a couple of things we could do about that. One, we can buy a minimalist machine and force ourselves to work with less. On the other side of that same coin, you can attempt to make this rule for yourself where you say, hey, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work today, but I'm going to only use 8 samples when I make this beat. And then see what happens, you know. That is a thing that I do. I'll either jump on my S2400, which I think does a great job of balancing modern workflow with the vintage limitation. S2400 from Isla Instruments, I think, does a fantastic job of that. On the other side of the same coin, I can jump on any of these other machines that I have here and say, hey, I'm only going to work with 8 samples. I'm going to just, you know, and 4 of those is pretty much going to be drums, right? You know, 2 kicks, 2 snares, you know, and then 2 hats. But when you double up the kicks and snares, technically that's 1 and 2, right? And then you have 2 hats. In some cases, I'm not doubling up the snares and the kicks. It just depends on the machine that I'm working with, and it depends on the drums. But nonetheless, where I'm going with it is I think that in your beat making practice, because you should be practicing, right? Every time you sit down, you don't necessarily need to sit down with the intent to make a beat. Sometimes you should sit down just to practice. Like, hey, I'm going to chop up some samples. I'm going to, you know, just kind of come up with some ideas and practice your technique. You don't necessarily have to make that beat from soup to nuts, but it is important to practice. I wanted to jump on the S2400, and I wanted to do something minimal. Work on a machine that was minimal, just see what I could cook up, right? And do it in a short span of time. So I already have a couple of things in here. A sample that I made, but I chopped it up, and these are the chops. That's it. And I made a mute group out of that, or a choke group. And in bank B, I already have my drums. These are from the Boom Bap Kingdom Volume 1 drums. And that's it. So we're working with a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 samples total. Now, obviously, if I threw some offsets in there and a hook, maybe a bass line, that would increase the sample count, you know. But as far as the meat and potatoes, like, hey, this is what I did to get started to make the core patterns, that's, you know, 10 samples total, and that includes the drums. So let's see, I'm gonna mess with the pitch of these chops and see if I get inspired by the pitch, you know, and then I'll see if I can come up with
The Boom Bap Kingdom says, let's pitch these fucking samples.
Come on. We on to something already. You know what? I'm gonna chop it down, make it a little smaller. That was for you, seventh touch. Peace to the God. There, we got it. Yo, the Boom Bap Kingdom says.
Boom Bap Kingdom says it's time for some drums.
Let's go. You know what we say at the Boom Bap Kingdom, baby. You better save your...
The Boom Bap Kingdom says, save yours.
So bang, I just did that. And listen, with just some drums and some chops, we already got a strong foundation for a track. With a beat like this, and we're going very minimal, you know, 10 samples at best, we could throw a one shot in here for bass. So let's do that. Let's go to bank C. Let's load up a one shot bass sample. So I just used the envelope, take a little of that tail off, and I brought it down -2 on the pitch. And that's nice and smooth, I like it. Come on, really simple stuff. So just a few samples, drums, 5 chops, 4 pitched one shot. You know, it's literally a one shot bass sample that I copied across tracks and pitched, you know, to have different octaves. And I only used 3 of the 4 copies that I made from a very minimal perspective on a minimalist machine. Was starting to build out a very full track, and you could hear it. Let's go into multi-mode level. As always, I appreciate you guys joining me here at the Boom Bap Kingdom. I hope we had a nice little discussion on the benefit of sometimes stepping away from the more advanced machines and jumping on something that's minimal. Also applying the theory of minimal amount of samples or instruments in your beat. You know, I think sometimes the less you have, it forces you to think outside of the box and to create something that otherwise you might not have been able to put together had you had more options. You know, sometimes less options, it fosters creativity. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed your time here at the Boom Bap Kingdom. I always enjoy our time here at the Boom Bap Kingdom. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'm gonna leave you guys with the finished joint and a BBK salute.
BBK salute.